The silver reckoning is finally here, and there is no place left for the guilty to hide from the light of justice. Experience the high-stakes drama of a final confrontation that will change the lives of our characters forever. Subscribe now and witness the ultimate balance of fate.
The flight attendant's announcement woke me from a half-sleep somewhere over Ohio, and by the time we landed in Charlotte, I felt like I'd been wrung out and left to dry. I'm a travel nurse. I've been doing this for 6 years, picking up 13-week contracts at hospitals across the country, living out of a rolling suitcase, calling whatever apartment or extended stay hotel I'm in home until the contract ends and I pack up again. I'm used to unfamiliar places. I'm used to walking into buildings I've never seen before and figuring out where the ice machine is, where the closest pharmacy is, which elevator smells like mildew and should be avoided at all costs. What I'm not used to is being afraid. That Tuesday in October, I was starting a new contract at a hospital outside of Charlotte. 13 weeks in a city I'd only driven through once. I'd booked 2 nights at a mid-range hotel near the hospital. Nothing fancy, nothing sketchy, just the kind of place with a hot breakfast bar and a parking lot with decent lighting, a Marriott Courtyard. I'd stayed at a dozen of them. I checked in a little after 9 at night. The lobby smelled like artificial lavender and carpet cleaner. There was a family with 2 kids near the elevator, a businessman typing on his phone by the window, the low hum of a TV somewhere down a hallway, everything normal, everything fine. The woman at the front desk, I'd find out later her name tag said Val, short for Valentina, was probably in her 50s, with reading glasses on a chain around her neck and the kind of calm efficiency you see in people who've been doing the same job well for a very long time. She pulled up my reservation, confirmed my room on the 3rd floor, started printing my key cards, and then she paused. Not a long pause. Maybe 2 seconds. But something in her face shifted, just slightly, like a door closing quietly in another room, and she looked up at me over her glasses. "Are you traveling alone tonight?" she asked. I said yes. She nodded slowly, like that confirmed something for her. She printed a second set of key cards, slid them into a different sleeve, and pushed them across the desk. "I'm going to put you in 214 instead," she said, keeping her voice low. "It's the same room type, same price. Actually, a better view." She paused again. "I prefer you to use this room tonight, and I'd ask that you keep your door locked and your privacy latch on. Don't open it for anyone who isn't hotel staff in uniform." I laughed a little. Not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do with what she'd just said. "Is there something wrong with 307? I asked. She gave me a small, careful smile. The kind that's really a non-answer. "Nothing wrong with the room," she said. "You'll be much more comfortable in 214. I hope you have a good night." She said it in a tone that closed the subject completely. Warm, but final. The way you talk to someone when you need them to just trust you and not ask more questions. I took the key cards. I stood at the elevator for a second looking back at her. She'd already moved on to something behind the desk, but I noticed she picked up the phone. I told myself it was nothing. Val was probably just particular about room assignments. Some front desk staff are. Or maybe 307 had a noise complaint, a malfunctioning heater, a view of the dumpsters. There were 100 ordinary explanations, and I was tired and I had orientation at 7 in the morning and I did not have the energy to spend on this. I went to room 214. It was a standard room. 2 queens, blackout curtains, the low hum of the HVAC unit. I threw my suitcase on the luggage rack, brushed my teeth, texted my sister to say I'd landed safe. I put the privacy latch on. I always do that, habit from years of solo travel, and I got into bed. I was almost asleep when I heard it. A knock. Down the hall somewhere. Not unusual. Hotels are not quiet places. Then another knock. Closer. Then a man's voice, muffled through the walls. "Housekeeping." I looked at the clock. It was 10:47 at night. I sat up. Housekeeping doesn't come at 10:47 at night. Not at a Marriott Courtyard. Not at any hotel I'd ever stayed at. I heard it again, the same 2 words, the same flat tone, and then the distinct sound of a keycard being inserted into a slot. Not at my door. Down the hall. But close. I got out of bed and stood very still in the middle of my room, listening. My heart was doing something it normally doesn't do, a kind of low, rapid hammering, like it was trying to warn me before my brain caught up. Then I heard a woman's voice. Sharp. Alarmed. Who is that? I didn't call for housekeeping. A pause. Then the man's voice again. Lower this time. Harder to make out. Then the woman's voice again. And this time, it wasn't words, it was just a sound. Short and cut off in a way that made the hair on my arms stand up. I grabbed my phone off the nightstand. I called the front desk. Val picked up on the second ring. Front desk, this is Val. This is the guest in 214, I said. I kept my voice down without really deciding to. There's someone in the hallway saying they're housekeeping. It's almost 11 o'clock. I just heard a woman down the hall. She sounded frightened. I don't know what's happening, but something feels wrong. There was a very brief silence on the other end of the line. Stay in your room, Val said. Her voice was still calm, but it had changed. The warmth was gone. This was a different register entirely. Lock your door. Keep your latch on. Do not open it for anyone. I'm calling security right now. What's happening? I asked. I'm going to explain everything, she said. But first, let me make this call. Don't hang up. She didn't put me on hold. I could hear her in the background, speaking to someone, her voice low and quick. Then she came back. Security is on their way to the 3rd floor, she said. Are you okay? Are you safe? I'm in my room. I'm fine. But that woman, we're handling it, she said. Stay on the line with me if you want. I sat down on the edge of the bed. I was still in my pajamas, my phone pressed to my ear, listening to the strange quiet on the other end of the call. About 4 minutes later, and I know it was 4 minutes because I watched the clock, I heard voices in the hallway. Multiple people. The low crackle of a radio. Then, nothing. Val came back on the line and told me that someone would come to speak with me in the morning, that I should try to sleep, that I was safe. I did not sleep. At 7 the next morning, there was a knock at my door. This time a proper one, followed by, Ms. Keller? This is the hotel manager, and there are 2 officers here who would like to speak with you. Could you come down to the lobby? I got dressed in about 90 seconds. In a small conference room off the lobby, Val was already seated at the table. Across from her were 2 Charlotte-Mecklenburg police officers and a man in a hotel manager's polo who introduced himself as Derek. No, not Derek, I should say. Who introduced himself as the manager on duty. I'll call him the manager. They explained it to me in pieces. 2 men had been watching the hotel for several days. They'd been targeting solo female travelers, specifically women who had posted their travel information publicly on social media before their trips. Arrival times, flight numbers, hotel names, the kind of details people share without thinking about it, the way you text a friend, except they were sharing it with everyone. I felt something cold move through me when they said that. 6 weeks earlier, I had posted on my Instagram, starting a new contract in Charlotte next month. So excited for this chapter. Staying near the hospital while I get settled. I had tagged the city. I had mentioned the hospital system by name, which any person with Google could cross-reference with the handful of hotels within a 3-mile radius. I hadn't posted the hotel name specifically, but I hadn't needed to. They'd figured out the rest. One of the officers explained that the 2 men had called the hotel the previous afternoon, claiming to be a family member of a guest, me, specifically, and asked to confirm my reservation. The front desk agent who took that call hadn't given out my room number, following policy, but had confirmed that yes, a guest by that name was checked in. They then arrived at the hotel in person and managed to get, through a combination of social engineering and a moment of inattention at a shift change, a key card to room 307, the room I had originally been assigned. Val had noticed something was off during the shift change. She'd seen one of the men at the desk during the handover, heard part of the exchange, and something about it hadn't sat right. She didn't have certainty, just instinct, and years of experience. After her colleague went on break, she'd pulled up my reservation and moved me. She hadn't told me the full story when I checked in because she didn't want to frighten me before she knew more. She didn't want me panicked in a hotel lobby at 10 o'clock at night with nowhere obvious to go. You made a judgment call, I said to her. "I've been doing this job for 19 years," she said quietly. "You learn to trust what doesn't feel right." I asked about the woman down the hall. One of the officers told me that the woman in the room adjacent to 307 had been approached by one of the men, who knocked on her door claiming to be maintenance responding to a noise complaint. She'd opened the door. She'd looked through the peephole, and he was wearing what looked like a hotel uniform shirt, which they later found out he'd purchased at a thrift store 3 days earlier. She was okay. Shaken, but okay. The man had been startled when she screamed and had fled toward the stairwell, where security was already on the way up. Both men were apprehended in the parking garage within minutes. I sat in that conference room for a long time after the officers finished talking, longer than I needed to. I wasn't in shock, exactly. I've worked in emergency departments for 6 years. I've seen genuine shock, and this wasn't it. It was more like the specific feeling of understanding, all at once, how close something came. If Val hadn't moved me, if I had been in 307, if the woman in the room near mine had not screamed loud enough for me to hear through the wall, I thought about my Instagram post, about how it had never crossed my mind that sharing my excitement about a new city could be read as something else entirely, a schedule, an itinerary, a window of time when I would be somewhere specific and alone. I thought about all the other posts like it, the ones I'd made before other contracts, the layover selfies, the arrived safe updates, the photos of hospital badges on my first day. I deleted my Instagram that afternoon. I'm not saying everyone should. I'm not here to lecture anyone. I know how it sounds, and I know I made different choices than I'm making now, and I understand why people share their lives online. It's normal. It's connection. It's how we stay in touch with people we care about. I get it. I really do. But I think about what those 2 men knew about me before I ever stepped off that plane. They knew my name. They knew what I looked like. They knew I was a travel nurse, which meant I'd be in an unfamiliar city with no local support system, no friends or family nearby who could notice if something went wrong. They knew I was arriving on a Tuesday. They knew which hospital system I was working for. They knew I was going to be alone. I didn't give that information to them. I gave it to the internet, which is the same thing. The manager offered to comp my stay for the rest of my contract length. I thanked him but told him I'd already found an extended stay apartment through the hospital. He walked me out to the lobby and I shook his hand, and then I went back and found Val at the front desk. She was with another guest. I waited. When the guest left, she looked at me. "I wanted to say thank you," I said. "I know you were just doing your job, but you didn't have to do it the way you did. You could have just moved my room and not said anything. But the way you said it, you made me actually listen. You made me take it seriously without scaring me to death in the lobby." She was quiet for a second. 19 years, she said again. Like that was the whole explanation. Maybe it was. I drove to the apartment that afternoon and I sat in the parking lot for a few minutes before going inside. I called my sister. Not to update Instagram, not to text a photo, just to call her and hear her voice. I told her I loved her. I told her I was okay. She said I sounded weird and asked if I'd slept. I told her I'd explain later. Here's what I want you to take away from this, if anything. The men who targeted me didn't have special skills or inside access. They didn't hack anything. They didn't bribe anyone. They used a thrift store uniform shirt, a phone call, and information I had handed them for free. If you travel alone, if you travel at all, think about what you're posting and when. Post the photos after you're home. Keep the hotel name off social media. If a front desk agent ever changes your room and tells you to stay in and keep your latch on, please listen to her. She probably has 19 years of reasons for saying it. And if you're ever in a hotel hallway at 11 o'clock at night and something sounds wrong, a voice that doesn't fit, a knock at the wrong hour, anything that makes the back of your neck prickle, trust that feeling. Call the desk. Stay in your room. The woman near my original room trusted her instincts in the right way. She screamed, and that scream echoed down the hall to me, and my call reached Val, and Val had already put things in motion before either of us knew we needed her to. 3 strangers on the same floor of a Charlotte hotel, none of us knowing the others existed, each of us doing exactly the one thing we needed to do. It was enough. I still think about Val sometimes on long drives between contracts, in the quiet stretches of an overnight shift. I think about the 19 years it took to make her into someone who notices what other people miss. I think about what she did with what she noticed. I hope wherever you are tonight, if you're traveling alone, someone like her is working the front desk.